cloud. Hi, I'm Andrea Goeglein, and with me again today is someone that I've had with me before, my dear friend Trey Huntley. And today we're going to do something. Trey and I are going to not necessarily open our kimonos completely, but give you a sense of what it means to trust. You'll hear a lot of times, oh, you just got to trust that everything's going to work out and you got to trust this. And, it's very hard to trust when you can't see. We're business people, we're entrepreneurs, I want to see if I'm going to trust that I take this action. I want to see what it's going to look like. And so, Trey, I want to welcome you, and I want you to update everyone on where you are professionally today so that they get a little grounding for this conversation that we're going to have.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me back. I guess this means the first one. It's always a good sign when you get to come back.
Yes.
So it's lots of things have changed. So since we last talked, I think I was I can't remember exactly if I had decided I was going to go back to school or if I was just thinking about it. But now I am officially in a master's program in psychophysiology at Saybrook University.
Yep.
Actually relocated, so we're in North Carolina now. It's a big move there. And I'm still doing some real estate and stuff with investments and whatnot, but it's definitely not the primary focus at this point in time. So that's been the biggest change professionally. I'm hoping to get the master's done as quickly as I can, but as we're going to talk about, I don't really know what's next in that process. Just kind of doing it.
Let me just pause for a moment. So what you need to know is that he's changed location. He's basically walked away from an incredibly lucrative full-time investment in real estate. And yes, it's still kind of there. But tell everyone again the degree you're going to be getting. A master's in?
Master's in psychophysiology. So essentially, I think the easiest way to explain it is just how the mind and the body work together, how those two things interact. I think that's the quickest way.
How the mind and body work together. Everybody, it kind of is on the page that yes, it works together. But as entrepreneurs, when you take it to the next level, in the coaching, the executive coaching arena for years and years, it was like, what's the result? What are you measuring? How do you know something works? What are you selling? I can be selling a process, but can I be responsible for, if I buy this bottle of water, I know there's going to be 20 ounces of water in it. What do we know when we sell processes and techniques and systems?
Right.
Yeah. So then that led to the question, both of us are at a point in time where the work we were doing grounded us and grounds us, but the work we will be doing or want to do looks dramatically different.
Right. And I think that was incredibly informative for me. That led to the studies that I'm doing now was being in the business world or being in an entrepreneurial role where there were a lot of things that were good investments or that were profitable or that were at the time exciting. Like, I'm not going to say it was stuff I did not want to do or wasn't interested in. But I think having a spiritual background or having a background of awareness from my degree in dance, a somatic awareness, I really began to see the physiological changes in my body. I really began to feel the toll that it was taking. I think we all experience stress, right? We all experience the ups and downs of what we're doing, career wise or professionally. And sometimes we listen to that and then sometimes we cope. And I think for me personally, it just got to the point where it was like, I knew that there was nothing else that I was going to be able to do on the upscale that was going to get rid of these physiological issues. No, it was nothing major.
No matter how much money you continued to make in real estate, you didn't anticipate your body was going to start feeling better.
Right. It did. And I think it was pretty evident. I mean, I don't know how you would quantify it. Everybody's got a different metric or method, I guess, of the happiness metric. But I noticed that each year as numbers went up and up, there was a point in which happiness stopped, right? And then happiness was kind of plateaued. And I kept looking at that and I was like, wow, this is no longer achieving what I was hoping that it would achieve. And everything else seems arbitrary, just to keep going up for the sake of going up, because you perceive that that's what you have to do.
Correct.
From
So
some source
I
you
want
don't
to
know.
pause because there's so much there that you just said that will help people understand what it looks like when we say that money is not always the driver. There is an amount of money and an amount of achievement through money and all of that works. But if you are not aligned, and your body is that thing that begins to tell you, sleeplessness, it can be in the mind, sleepless nights, your body starts aching in ways, you get into accidents and what you're doing, dropping things or on your bike or whatever. And it's really screaming at you, yes, I can do fine here on one end and more than fine, but it's not what I want to do. And there are ways, in my world, it's starting with knowing what your natural strengths are, which the link is, in the description below for you to get that free, because the more you have your strengths showing up in your life, like one of mine is love of learning, doing something. And then you mentioned that word spirituality. That's another one of mine. So making sure my work allows me to use a word like spirituality is an important thing.
Yeah,
and I believe that's where I want you to go next, because you are, both of us came out of strong religious foundations. And I would say the word spiritual, which means for me that I can feel more that I am in alignment with the good that I know to be in alignment with my belief systems. What does this look like for you? What's that part, the spiritual part of the calling of where you are right now? What does that look like?
Curiosity is one of the biggest words that I think for me. Now, I think it's important to know, or important to make it clear, that a lot of times whenever we're in a job or whenever we're feeling a certain feeling, it's like, oh, maybe we're not happy in the job that we're doing, or maybe somebody's watching and they say, I can relate to that feeling of, I don't know where else I can go from here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my happiness is plateaued. I know a lot of the generic talks, I'm sure you've heard them too, where it's find your passion and get really specific about what you want to do, and have your plan and all of that. I think, and I don't know, but for me that has a lot of stress sometimes, because when you're going from one thing to the other, sometimes you don't know what you want to do. You don't have a clear plan. You're not like, oh, I know exactly what I want. You just feel what you don't want in the moment. You feel what you're not really vibrating with in that moment. So for me, when I think of spirituality, when I think of connection, or the things that really make me feel energized, I think of it as an exploration. I think of it as curiosity. And for me, it's allowing, and I also want to caveat this with saying, like, I'm not saying that some people might not know exactly what they want to do. Some people might have a very clear, direct calling into something that they know right off the bat, and they're just ignoring it. So they're miserable because they're living in fear, or they think, well, I might fail at that, so they don't do it. And that's a totally different topic. So I think it is a spectrum of all sorts of different types of personalities and ways of viewing things and ways of being in the world. But I think the commonality is the fear of what is hindering you from making that decision. And I think for me, my spiritual inclination is to discover more about things that I don't know about.
It's spiritual is a lot more freeing, and I think it's more feeling oriented versus religiously. It's more dogma. It's a rule following. Like one,
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
I would.
different, so I would take that one, but the topic that we're both facing and that I think is so curious is that one of taking these steps. And I actually will admit, I know where I want to spend my time and where I want to produce going forward. Zero ability to know where the income would come from doing it, with the exception there are ways of doing the work. Like I use YouTube, and many people devote their lives to building huge YouTube audiences. And the reason that's not a business model that works for me is that at any moment, that business can be closed at the discretion of the corporation that owns the medium. That's not how I want to invest my time, chasing after numbers that's just a thing. In your case, knowing where to put your talent when that it's actually how would you describe the talent you have and are developing through your studies? How would you describe it?
That's a good question. I was actually recently thinking about this. So historically, I've not enjoyed school. Like when I was growing up, I didn't really like
Right.
schoolwork. I didn't like arbitrarily doing anything. I didn't like being told to do something that I wasn't interested in, as most of us don't.
Right.
And I also didn't like just having to go through a process in which I felt was inefficient or not really producing not really producing anything creatively. So there was a creative
Right.
component to it. So I gravitated towards the arts. I gravitated toward things that were more creative. And putting myself back in a master's program, it's been like, man, I love the pain, I guess. So that's been eye-opening to see that I still don't have a natural talent towards that writing style, or finding the citation, or doing it in a certain way that I feel like I see others do. I'm like, oh, they're very good at school. I think for me, one of the things that I do value, or I do appreciate, is that my brain is always wanting to find connections. It's always wanting to, and as we were talking about the other day or earlier, the correlation between the academic world and the real world. A lot of the people viewing this, they might not care about the citations. Maybe they do. Maybe they, maybe they have some knowledge about something, and that's good enough. And you go into a research world, and they're more focused on, okay, can we cite something in a specific way, and make sure it's sound. And I find myself wanting to find that middle ground between, okay, how do we make sure something is well researched and that has enough teeth to it, that is not just snake oil, or not just something that it's not valuable to people, but at the same time presents it in a way that makes sense, that is engaging. That I think YouTube is a prime example of, when you look at some of the teaching that you can find people doing with animation, or the concepts that might be heavy, or a little bit hard to understand, having gifted orators that also can deliver information. We've seen this emerge, where you're like,
vehicle. Yeah.
oh wow, well, just the well, I guess what I'm getting at is the ability to take this information and not just put it in a way that's like geared towards other researchers, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking, my my skill set, my hope is to be able to come out of this with enough information to bring good knowledge into a marketing world. Because real estate, it's all about selling yourself. It's all about meeting people. It's all about getting out there and connecting with human beings, like, and helping people reach something, like achieve something.
They get a house at the end of a deal. They either sell a house or get a house at the end of the deal.
And also educating them on different things that they might not know about, and opportunities to invest, or opportunities to wait. Like, all of those things are really good, and psychologically there's a ton that goes into that. So I think that whole skill set is also huge part. But I think the thing that I realized was I didn't want to I didn't want to limit the conversations to closets. I was ready to talk about more.
You wanted something deeper.
Nothing wrong
Well,
with closets, but
let's just circle back before we complete. So each of us are in a place where we're exploring new or more concentrated. We're taking things that were of interest before, like the media stuff has been in my life 15 years, and now it's become the focus, the podcasting and the creating of these videos, that's TV, all of that is just the focus. And I have to trust. So when I ask myself, how do I trust when I can't see where the money is? I will say for myself that I look for moment by moment connections where something I'm doing, someone will say that I had no idea at all was watching something, or someone will actually repeat something that they heard on something. I did a Zoom call today on my unicorn challenge, and the person who signed up for it, in a million years, I wouldn't have expected that was the person who's been following my work. It is those moments, but more importantly, when I don't get to do the work, I don't feel as good. I don't physically feel as good. And so I'll hand it to you to answer that question. How are you moving forward without really knowing the outcome? What's the things that are telling you that you're on the right path, even if you can't see the end of that path?
yeah. So first I want to say, I feel like I've had a lot of experience with having to trust in that process of not knowing, having
Yep.
traveled and stuff. But I will say it gets easier in some ways and it doesn't get easier at the same time. So, it's like there's never an arrival. I guess
Right.
that's what I'm trying to say. So it very much is still a process and still something that you actively are learning. It's an ongoing exploration, meaning I'm learning that the answer to this question is evolving, I think, all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I agree with you. Synchronicities are huge. I think that is something that people they just don't give enough credit to a lot of times. And that is one thing that I really wish. Well, I don't wish I could tell people. I strive to live it out. I share the examples of what happens in my life as much as I can. Just try to be that. What I find is when you share those examples of those synchronicities, people might start thinking of what could happen in their life. And it's so simple because you don't have to prove it to somebody. If you suggest it in a way that's just give it a shot, just ask. And it's like almost 100%. I feel like everybody comes back. You wouldn't believe what happened. I saw this thing and blah, blah, blah. So I think what you said is a great point of learning how to not look at that as random, learning how to fit that into the greater picture, ask specific questions to your higher self, to the universe, whatever you want to call it, and receive specific things and connect it to those questions. Because if you connect it to the questions, you're able to tell the subconscious, okay, hey, this was an answer that even though I might not believe it because I've visualized it manifesting in the 3D reality, three-dimensional reality right now, I can choose to take that as an alternative to say, okay, this is going to be something. For example, with real estate, I will very, very, very simple, right? Real estate was not on my radar at all. I never thought about real estate. I was a dance major. I was a performing dancer. I was an artist, right? In random turn of events in New York, I'm at a random guitar store because I play guitar and I'd stop in and, play every now and then just to kill time. I meet a guy in a suit. We start talking and just about random stuff. And he looks at me and he said, "You're going to be very successful in real estate." And I said, "Thank you, but you don't know who I am or what, I'm a dancer. This
is that a dance step?"
Yeah, I was like, the weirdest thing a person could say to somebody. Didn't think much of it, but then it happened 2 more times in different ways that were just so odd. And I started to think about it and I was like, this is wait a minute, am I missing something here? And then it really clicked, and I was like, wait a minute, okay, I do think that there's something leading me towards this.
Right.
Fast forward, I get my license, I start for 6 months. I mean, the process was like, not really making money, not enjoying it. There was so much stuff about it. I was like, there's no way. There's just no evidence that this is what I'm supposed to do at all. But I kept thinking about those things. I was like, it's just too odd that all those things lined up. And long story short, it was like I stayed in it just past the pushing point to where the dam broke and everything came rushing in. And it was like, it was as if the universe was just like, here's everything I told you about and more. Now had I not had that vision or the synchronicities and the stuff that was presented to me before that, and such a compelling story.
Right.
It was a compelling story that you could say all of that had nothing to do with it, or it was just random or whatever.
Right.
Sure, that's fine. You can give somebody that. But the goal is a compelling story that the subconscious has, and a belief system that the subconscious has, that will carry you to anything you really want. And isn't that really what it's, I mean, isn't really that the point? Like, you get there from there anyway. So it's like, I don't really focus on whether or not, like, oh, how can I prove this and that, or how can
Right.
that side of things be proven, as much as it's what is the story that I'm telling myself, and what can strengthen that story? What can allow myself to be allow myself to actually believe that story?
Yeah.
And I find that's the power of the
So
waiting.
I wanna sum this up because there's so many things. One, you listen to statements even when they don't make sense, and it stuck with you. You use the word curious, be curious. And that is part of that feeling, because it's like, it makes you wonder. It takes you out of the lull of being like comatose. You didn't shut it down. And you also didn't feel like it had to be forever.
Right.
Okay. I didn't hear you say, I'm going to go into real estate. If once I do, I don't get another choice at what I ever do. Curiosity allows you to take that step. So it's being a level of personal awareness that you actually pay attention to things that are said around you, not because they're the knowing, but because they may be seeding in you things for you to connect.
Absolutely. And also, let me say this too, just to connect this back to the physiological component of it.
Yes.
Um, I, I feel like it's really important to put all of those things together, because when you receive information, or you look at something, or you read something, or you have an idea about something, I think it's very important to not only internalize what that might mean, but how that feels in your body.
Yes.
When you think of it, what is going on in your body? Is there an excitement? Is there a feeling of energy? Is there a feeling of frustration? Is there a feeling of fear? And do you get a stomach ache? Do you get like you want to go run? Like, those things, I believe, it's the body's way of telling us information about that, and information about what, not necessarily what might happen with it, but what you are what your subconscious is trying to tell you. Many people have done muscle testing and all that. I don't know much about muscle testing. I just know at the end of the day, there are always really simple ways, and most people feel this if they really think about it. When they think about things in their life, there's always a feeling attached to it. Even with people, when they think about different people or being around people or relationships, should I move on from a relationship? Should I stay in this relationship? What is your body when you're with that person? How does your body feel? Like, what's it trying to tell you?
And being able to discern the difference, one of the things that, and I do want to close at this point, but that knowing the difference when you have the feeling, like, say your stomach gets all tied up in knots, being able to discern, is this me being afraid? Because you said you have to be able to identify, what is this? Is this me being afraid, like there's actually an external fear I have to be cautious of? Or is this the type of fear where I stop myself? And all of that takes, the discerning of that is that it takes the time of you being constantly aware. And you will make mistakes initially, because that's the one thing about the feeling stuff and assigning the feeling. You see something and you always have what you want to have happen, or what you are already afraid of, and you'll mix up your own messages.
Yeah.
So I want to just leave this conversation for now. We'll check back in a few months and see where
Yeah.
the both of us are with fending this all out. What I will say is that be aware, take steps that feel good, and make sure you really pay attention to what you're trying to tell yourself, not what you are trying to predestine in an outcome, because this is the outcome you want.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing, the last thing I want to add to that before we go is I think it's really important to realize that a lot of the times our initial feeling is honest. The fear comes from when we go from the point that we're at to a year, to a day, to a week, to a month. We go into the future, and then we think of all the different possibilities, and we're already naturally inclined to maybe think of the negative side. So we don't stay in the moment, and we don't think of, we're going to leave that future is going to be the future. I'm not controlling how it's going to happen. I'm focusing on the feeling right now. How does it feel today? And I find that is the easiest ways to circumvent what you were saying of getting the fear and all, because most people are not afraid of what's actually happening. They're afraid of the negative, what may happen that they haven't trained themselves to not process that way. So I would say anybody in that place, forget about the future. Don't assign an outcome to what you're seeing in the synchronicity that has to happen, and just say, how do I feel about this today? And I will be curious about what happens tomorrow, and I will let it build upon itself. I always have to resort back to that. If I'm frustrated, I'm too far in the future. I'm too far. When I'm frustrated, I'm worried, I'm too far in the future.
You betcha.
And I don't have the capacity there yet. I don't have. I got to go back to today and in the moment. So.
Well, for today, I am so grateful we got to have this conversation and share it. Thank you as always, and I look forward to our next conversation. I am Andrea Goeglein. Please subscribe and you will get the next part. And Trey Huntley, I wish you all the greatest success, and I can't wait to see what you do.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you. Boom. All right, let me